This is Johnny, the chubby, Caucasian, Christian, closeted conservative. Some might say I'm everything wrong with the world, but don't take their word for it. Make up your own mind. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Chubby, Caucasian, Christian, Closeted Conservative. I hope everyone had a wonderful Thanksgiving, was able to get together with family and friends, share some food, offer some thanks to our Lord for all of our blessings. How crazy is it that this country, this world that we live in, has really lost the true meaning of Thanksgiving? We've turned it into this cultural battle between Native Americans and Pilgrims, when in fact, we really should take the time to reflect just how we've been blessed and to give thanks for just the next breath that we breathe, the heartbeat that we just had. I always do. I really love this time of year, especially Thanksgiving. It's always just such a time of rest for me, I feel. Especially with my new job. I worked in a industry before that was 24/7, 365 days a year. No days off. I work Thanksgiving and everything. And with my new job, we're given the majority of holidays off. So I was, again, truly blessed to be able to celebrate Thanksgiving with my community, with my family. And it was just a lovely time. And I don't know if this is true with anybody else, but in this time, especially as we get close to New Year's, it really does become a time of reflection for me. Looking over the past year, the past 11, 12 months, seeing if I have accomplished goals that I set for me in the beginning of the year, seeing how my life has changed just in a year. So I really would like to take some time today and just chew the fat, just right from the heart. I had a interesting conversation just this Thanksgiving holiday with a liberal Larry in my family. I prayed no one had any very heated arguments over their Thanksgiving meal. We did not have a heated argument. In fact, ever since I created this podcast, it's been very easy with me to just avoid these conversations and take mental notes. I even jotted a few things down on my phone during our conversation, and I'm able to express those here. When I first started this show, I narrowed down 3 of my biggest priorities, and they really have not changed: Christ, community, and country. I have felt when you work to better those 3 things, your relationship with the Lord, to help out in your community, to work on relationships with your friends and family and extended family, to reach out to them, to try and build on top of those relationships, and you work to better your country for your children's future. These are all things that are important for me, and I feel in doing so will only make me a better person and help me further on down the road. I also feel that the majority of my priorities, these 3 priorities, are more in line with the conservative Republican Party. I've never once on this podcast stated who I voted for in any election. I am a registered Republican, and I did vote for Donald Trump 3 out of the 4 times I had the opportunity to do so. The only time I did not do so was in the 2016 Republican presidential primary, where I ticked the box for Ben Carson. I watched the presidential debate, and I listened to a few of Ben Carson's sermons, and it just seemed like our top 3 priorities were all kind of in the same row. So it's only taken me over a dozen episodes to admit that, but I've done it. And it really is the liberal Larrys and Lindas that have pushed me further and further away from the Democratic Party. When I was in high school and college, I used to walk more middle down the road. But one of my biggest issues with the Democratic Party is if you don't drink the Kool-Aid, you're wrong and they hate you. For instance, let's just talk about Kyle Rittenhouse. Just for a minute, just as an example. I watched 7-8 hours of the trial. By all means, the jury are the true experts on this case, and I would have respected their decision. But there were 3 or 4 pieces of evidence and testimony that I saw that allowed me to make what I think is an educated opinion on this case. The gross guard testimony, the FBI drone footage and the infrared footage, the video of Kyle Rittenhouse being chased by several individuals and getting hit with a skateboard and stuff like that, and Kyle's testimony itself. Watching those 4 or 5 hours and the closing arguments from the defense and the prosecution really, I felt, allowed me to make an educated opinion on the case. Now, the liberal Lindas and Larrys and the mainstream media, they want to talk about his tears and everything, crocodile fake tears. I would think the jury would have a great understanding of Kyle's mindset just watching his body language during the entire trial and hearing his testimony from beginning to end. To me, it looked like a panic attack. My wife has panic attacks or has had panic attacks in the past, and my wife and I discussed if we were on trial, even as a witness of a horrific event, and we weren't even really involved, we just happened to witness a horrific event, and we're called to give our testimony of what happened, I believe I would become very emotional. And I can only imagine what my emotions and hormones would be like 17 or 18 trying to recount the events of this horrific event that I experienced. For instance, I was in a bad bike accident and I broke my right arm and my left hand. And occasionally when individuals talk about breaking arms or limbs and I think back about my accident, it makes my heart drop just because of the amount of pain I was in, and I can relate to that. And in fact, sometimes it makes my arm even ache when I hear people describing broken bones and stuff, and even in news stories, people that I don't know. It's just it's a reaction and a train of thought that I have difficulty controlling when injuries like that are brought up, or when we come up to the anniversary of my bicycle accident. So I mean, I can relate a little bit. Was it exaggerated? Was it real? That's really not the point I'm trying to get at. In this community that I live in a dark blue state near Baltimore City, if you don't 100% drink the Kool-Aid about this Kyle Rittenhouse trial, you're racist. That's one reason why I named my show the reason I named it. I've always kind of thought I was middle of the road, leaning right. But if you don't fully drink the Kool-Aid and bend the knee to the DNC, you are a chubby, Caucasian, Christian, closeted conservative. So let me just play out my example with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. I don't want my son looking up to Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero. I think Kyle made a lot of bad decisions that put him in the situation that he was in. I would like to think that we all could find common ground. That if every law was followed and enforced in Kenosha that night, including the curfew, that this situation, this trial would have never even happened. I think we can all find common ground in there. In fact, if this was my child and they even thought about going down there after it got dark, I would have been down there with them scrubbing graffiti off of schools or whatever. But as soon as it started getting dark, if they even thought about going down there or was still down in the city of Kenosha after it got dark, I would have whooped some tail. So hopefully we can find common ground on that. Now, some on the right might not agree with me on this, but I would like to have seen these pictures after Kyle Rittenhouse was released from prison allowed in the trial. Whether these people are Proud Boys or racist or whatever, I think that would have added a lot to Kyle Rittenhouse's character and mindset. However, if you're going to allow that in the case, I believe the individuals that Kyle Rittenhouse shot, that their histories should be brought in as well to give a full scope of their capabilities. Now, see, what I love about the conservative Republican Party, I believe they're more open-minded, and I don't think I lost many Republicans in that statement. Possibly some radical right-wingers, but I believe the majority of conservatives could follow my train of thought in that. However, I might have lost a lot of liberal Larrys and Lindas when I suggested that Joseph Rosenbaum's history should have been more involved in the trial to give an idea of these individuals' mindsets and what they are capable of. Hopefully, the majority of us could find common ground that I would have never let my 17-year-old out in Kenosha at night, and I would have never let my 17-year-old out of my sight with a firearm. I think we can have some discussion about the way the judge acted in the case, and I think it's sad that 2 individuals lost their lives and 1 was shot that night. And I'm going to lose some liberal Larrys and Lindas here, but I hope that the majority of us can find common ground, that the prosecution might have rushed to charge Kyle Rittenhouse. I think if they would have slowed their roll and maybe went for some lesser charges, that they might have actually been able to convict him. But see, if you're a liberal or Democrat, you have to fully drink the Kool-Aid. You can't settle for lesser charges. And in fact, when I say, I think I've listed a few things here that the majority of us can agree on. But the minute that I say I believe Kyle Rittenhouse acted in self-defense, I am a racist. I'm a radical, Trump-supporting, involved in January 6th racist. And once you say that, you can't give a defense for it because they don't want to hear it. They don't want to listen. My biggest defense for it is after Rosenbaum starts chasing him, there is no place that I see where Kyle Rittenhouse can just put his hands up and go, you know what? I'm done. I'm going home. There is no possible way that after he gets himself in that situation, he can walk away without injury. Let me give you another example. Now, I know I'm going to lose a few of the majority of my conservative friends here, but let's just say that I accept the outcome of the 2020 election, that I accept Joe Biden as my president, and that I respect him. I don't want any harm to come to him, and in fact, I hope he does a good job because when he succeeds, America succeeds. So let's just say that. As soon as I ask why windows in Detroit were covered, why ballot machines that were not supposed to be hooked up to the internet are hooked up to the internet, or even indulge the idea or want to have a conversation about possible minor voting fraud, I'm a white supremacist. Another example, I respect women. I want women to have the right to vote, the right to work. I want women to receive equal pay for equal work. My wife and I, we make a great team. Man and woman make a great team. No offense, but I have the best spouse. My wife is everything that I am not, and I hope that I help her out as much as she helps me. I want women to be able to choose whether to be a stay-at-home mom or to have a career of their own. My wife had a friend who just fought breast cancer, and we actually donate money to a breast cancer charity. Hopefully, we all can find common ground on the majority of these, and we all think the majority of these things are good things that should be happening in this country. But the minute that I question or ask why bacteria on a distant planet is worth more than a fetus in a woman's belly, I'm a sexist. The minute that I think at some point I have to stand up for the weakest among us, an unborn child, and say at some point this child has the right to live, and at some point say, yes, it is your body, but it's also a child's life. The minute that I think abortion should be used in rare circumstances and not as a form of birth control, the minute that I have concern for a young woman or even my wife going into a public bathroom that allows men in skirts to go in there, the second that I worry that my wife might be in danger by that, I'm sexist. To be honest, the whole bathroom thing, you know how I really feel about it? All men's rooms should have changing rooms as well. Let me tell you, men change diapers as well. My son could barely hold his head up when we were in a department store one time. And I had to go to the bathroom, and he needed his diaper changed. So I took him into the bathroom. There wasn't enough room to get the stroller in there. Now the female restroom is massive, but the men's room, there was not enough room to get the stroller in there. And it only had one stall that would not fit the stroller in. So I left the stroller outside of the restroom, and I took him in. And I used the bathroom, and there was no place to change him. So I ended up walking back to the vehicle to change his diaper in the vehicle. Now, my wife and I, we have gone back to that same store since then, and she changed him in that bathroom. There was plenty of room to get I digress. There should be a family bathroom at every place. That should be the bathroom policy, a men's, woman, and a family bathroom. You can go in there if you're pee shy, if you have to take a dump and don't want to do it in the other restroom, if you have a child that you want to change, or if you have to go to the bathroom, but your child might not necessarily have to go in the bathroom, you can go in there and lock the door and let your kid kind of run around a little bit. It should have a changing table. I could go on and on and on. But the minute that I have this opinion, the minute I want to have this conversation, the minute that I say maybe someone who was born with male genitalia but feels like they are a woman should not go into the woman's restroom because I'm worried about young females and my wife being in the same bathroom with men, I'm sexist, homophobic, and misogynistic. I actually wish we could find some more common ground in this bathroom thing. The family bathroom is amazing. Maybe like some sort of unisex bathroom, if that way I could go in there and keep an eye on my family while we use the bathroom. I'm a sexist. This is another example and a great conversation that I had with a liberal Larry that enraged them, and I couldn't comprehend why. This individual we were having a discussion about equity and equality, and after I was lectured and preached to for 20 minutes, half an hour, about how the majority of minorities are poor and homeless and addicted to drugs and alcohol, and they have issues with education and housing and transportation and violence in their community and have difficulty getting healthy food and clean water and fresh air. I looked at my liberal Larry and I said, you know what? Maybe you're right. I've always been told to pick myself up by my bootstraps, but maybe that is difficult for some people, and maybe we should do a better job in this country. And I on a side note, I really think the church needs to step up and help out with this more so than our country, but that's beside the point. For this conversation, I used just our government. Maybe they should get more involved in helping the less fortunate and poorest among us. And this liberal Larry became enraged and said, no, not the poorest among us, minorities in general. I went on to tell them, you just told me that the majority of poor people are minorities. But since I wouldn't say that we should do everything possible, bend over backwards to help every single minority, I was racist. I even went on to say, as a country, I think we should help other countries that are less fortunate than us. As the biggest, baddest, best country in the world, the great American experiment, a country that has done amazing things for mankind, no other nation has ever been as generous as we are, we should lend a handout to countries that have the issues that you've been discussing. But I was racist. I was told in this conversation that I have white privilege and that I would never understand why minorities only needed help. That screw all the other white poor people living out of dumpsters and addicted to drugs. They don't matter. And if it's important to you, this liberal Larry in front of me that was talking to me was white. He was white, and I attempted to de-escalate the situation. It didn't work, but I attempted to de-escalate the situation by reiterating that I felt like we were saying the same thing. You went on and on and on about how the majority of minorities are less fortunate, and I just cast a bigger net and said we should help all of those less fortunate. It didn't help the situation. And then this is the best one. You're having a conversation about COVID. You got your beer, you got your hot dog or slice of pizza, you're outside, it's a beautiful day, your Larry and Linda are there, you're having this conversation, everybody's finding common ground that COVID is real, that it should be taken seriously, how tragic it is, how many people have died. You're finding common ground that older individuals, people with underlying conditions, and obese individuals don't do well against COVID, have difficulty fighting serious cases of COVID. You might all find common ground that the vaccines are a good thing and that everybody should get vaccinated. You're thankful for the age that we live in, where the vaccine could be created so quickly, where doctors and science is so quickly to evolve to this, and how much we've learned. And then the conversation takes a shift. Begin talking about masks. My personal opinion is I don't really care to wear them, and I really don't think they do a whole lot. You gotta go online and watch some of the videos of like painters and guys who like vape through these masks. And then they show you how small like a COVID particle is compared to, I'll post some of them on my Facebook. You should go look at them. But you tell them that you don't really care to wear it, but I do. I always keep one in my pocket or one in my vehicle. And if someone wants me to put it on, I don't even ask. I don't even question it. I don't argue. I just throw it on. If I see a sign when I'm walking in the store that says, please wear a mask, I wear a mask. I've been in someone's house and they asked me to put a mask on. It was a little odd, but I put the mask on. I did what they wanted to do. And they start to look at you a little crook-eyed, but they're like, all right, maybe this guy. Then they start bragging about the vaccine. Who's been vaccinated, who hasn't been vaccinated, when they got vaccinated, which vaccine they got. And finally it comes around to you. And you give what you think is the most politically correct answer. You think the vaccine is a marvel of medical science. It's crazy how quickly they were able to produce something like this so quickly that you don't really care if people get vaccinated or don't get vaccinated. You encourage individuals to talk to their primary physician, listen to them. If you don't like that doctor's opinion, you should seek out another doctor and get their opinion. Maybe seek multiple opinions from multiple doctors before you get the vaccine. I would encourage anybody with any severe illness get multiple opinions from multiple different doctors. My wife just recently had a miscarriage. We actually went to another doctor to get another sonogram, just to be sure. You reiterate again that people should take this seriously. However, you do have an issue with mandates and lockdowns and how they hurt the economy. You have found so much common ground with these people. You can even agree with them on 100% of what the vaccine does. It's good for you and everything. But as soon as you get concerned about the government putting mandates on people, one-size-fits-all medicine, forcing people to inject things in their bodies, and you worry about shutting down the economy again for supposedly the greater good, you're anti-vaxxer science denier. We all can find common ground about one of the most popular climate change studies that shows that the Earth is warming 0.01% of a degree a year. We might all find common ground that humans contribute to this. Heck, I even go as far as to say that I want my child to live on a healthy planet that doesn't have litter, where there's fresh air, green trees, clean water, and plenty of wildlife. I love looking at birds and wildlife, and I just hope when my son grows up that there will still be plenty of wildlife and birds for him to look at. But the minute that what you were taught in kindergarten about polar bears going extinct because it's not cold enough for them to survive, the minute you start to question how does throwing money at the Paris Climate Accord help climate change, the minute that you ask how much does my tank of gas every 10 days to 2 weeks really affect the climate, is there really a lot that I can do to help with this issue? You're an anti-science climate denier that wants dirty air, dirty water. I have a old friend too from college who recently had this experience, and this is the last and the most craziest one. My friend is pretty liberal. Posts stuff on Facebook about climate change, people getting vaccinated, how awful. He posts about how awful the abortion law in Texas is, and gun rights, and no one should ever have guns, and how awful Kyle Rittenhouse is, and I mean just everything. He's a registered Democrat, and he watched the Democratic primary debate, was not impressed with Joe Biden, didn't vote for Joe Biden in the primary. And then after watching the presidential debate and some of the videos that Joe Biden had posted, he began to see how weak and out of touch Joe Biden is. And he was really concerned with Joe Biden's health. He's a pretty intelligent guy, pretty up to date on current events and what's happening. And the last time we got together, of course, he brought up politics. He's already made prejudiced inferences about me. He's already drawn conclusions about me that are most likely true, but that I've never said out loud. And of course, he wanted to talk about the presidential election. And he told me that he could not vote for Joe Biden. And when he told some of his family members this, they called him a white supremacist. In order to be a liberal these days, in order to be accepted in the Democratic Party, you have to stand in line and drink the Kool-Aid. It's really not the party of open thinkers and equality that they want you to believe it is. It's either their way or the highway. You can believe that Kyle Rittenhouse is a murderer, George Floyd is a saint. You can think that we should do away with the prison system, defund the police, open borders. You can believe in reparations, climate change, throwing money, continuing to throw more money at a failing education system. But the minute that you question if Joe Biden is up to the task of leading the free world, you are a white supremacist. That is how the majority of Democrats see you. I can make the difference between a moderate liberal and a full-blown socialist. There are slight differences, which I don't want to get into now. But I say all that to make one final point. To all of these individuals who play identity politics, just because you don't fully line up with their agenda, fully down the list, as soon as you step out of line, just for a minute, you are judged and deemed unworthy to be part of the Democratic Party. You are canceled. Instantly, without even a thought. You're just gone. You are called names and cast out. Not worthy to be in their presence. Not worthy to be part of their society. It happened to me. I have been there. It happened to me. And I didn't used to believe this until the last couple of years. I always thought it was kind of tinfoil hat theory. But the more and more I see of it, the more I see the goalpost moving, the more I see different people held to different standards. We want to impeach and lock up conservative Republicans for crimes that we don't even know if they committed, and judge them differently for crimes and social faux pas that Democrats made. Why is there a two-tiered judgment system? We have one standard for one individuals and a different for another. Let me give you an example. The mask thing. I don't really care. Personally, I don't really care about masks. From what I've seen, what I've read, the cloth reusable mask that you use every day, I really don't think does a whole lot. If it makes you feel better, I will wear it if you ask me. But the fact that Donald Trump was criticized over and over and over again for never wearing a mask, yet we have Democratic leaders out there doing the exact same thing, but we turn a blind eye. We make up excuses for them. This was just a one-time thing. They forgot to put it on. There was no one else around them. They were social distance, and they just didn't put it on. They were eating, drinking, speaking, so they didn't put it on. Like I said, I don't really care. I just wish everybody was held to the same standard. And the more and more, that's just one example. There's many more. And the more and more I see of this, I'm starting to come to a conclusion that there are certain Democratic leaders who don't actually care. But the fact that we have rules for certain individual standards and these moral and ethical requirements for Republicans that are not applied equally to Democrats, it shows me that this whining and crying, this moral outrage, it's selective. They don't actually care. And I think you could make an argument for some right-wing media, maybe that they do the same thing. But they're usually saying this Republican was held to this standard, but this Democrat was allowed to slide by. It was pushed under the rug. They don't care. So if you're a moderate Democratic liberal out there who's honestly and truly concerned with poor people all over the world, not just in America, who cares about our planet, maybe even believes that we have a broken justice system, a failed education system, and wants to work towards that. I actually think that currently in this moment, you would be more accepted on the right than on the left. The majority of Democratic leaders, I truly believe, don't honestly care about the majority of the topics that they talk about, and that they will say, do, hurt, or pretend to be morally outraged about certain things just to stay in power. And I would just encourage you to think about the masks. It's a great example. It's a realistic, tangible example that mainstream media is not always going to cover. You can find hundreds of articles about Donald Trump not wearing a mask and how wrong that is, which is fine if you are a pro-masker. That's not the issue here. The mask or no mask is not the issue. But once you find those hundreds of articles about how awful Donald Trump is because he didn't wear a mask, or this Republican didn't wear a mask, or this state or county, this store chain is not enforcing people to wear masks, you can find hundreds of articles about that. But then I would encourage you to search for Nancy Pelosi not wearing a mask, Joe Biden not wearing a mask, AOC not wearing a mask, other Democratic leaders not wearing masks, and read those articles and see the excuses that are made for them. That's it. That's all I'm asking. I'll post some of them on my Facebook. And that's straight from the heart. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please rate, like, comment, subscribe. Look me up on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative and look for my eagle. I had a family member paint that eagle, and I loved it so much that she gave me the original. She has a Redbubble account. She's very patriotic, has some beautiful artwork. I would encourage you to go to Redbubble and search for Robin N. Brown. That's Robin as the bird, the letter N, Brown as the color. There's also a link to her Redbubble account in my description. If you want to join in the conversation, please reach out to me on Facebook. You can even go to my Anchor account and leave me a voicemail. Unfortunately, it can only be a minute long, but if you have multiple things to say, feel free to leave multiple messages. I'm also now on Alexa. You can ask your Alexa to play the Chubby Caucasian Christian Closeted Conservative, and she'll play my most recent episode. So please, join in with the conversation, and we will see you later.